Presenting the Brick House Podcast. The Brick House. Here comes the boom.
Hello guys, welcome back to the Brick House Podcast. My name is Matthew Rick, and I'm super excited for you guys to be listening in, watching in, and today is going to be a good episode. Today I'm here with Christian Tsakalakis.
Yep, you got it. Tsakalakis.
Yes, sir. There's a few things I could say, but I'd love for you to kind of share who you are, what you're into, and kind of just like for the people that are listening or watching in, who are you a little bit?
Yeah, so I'm a senior at Valor Christian with Matthew. I started off my journey in high school thinking I'd be a neurosurgeon or a lawyer. So I pursued all of the STEM things, and I stuck with my passion of baseball. Then about sophomore year, I decided to go more down the humanities path. So I joined student council, was elected as the vice president of spiritual life that following year, and then picked up tennis for fun, and then ended up putting a lot of time and effort into that, as well as now taking business classes. So my hope is for college to be a master's in divinity degree, as well as furthered by a business degree in finance. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
That's awesome. Yeah. I've only gotten to know Christian here for a little bit now. I think I met him last year, just I think out of the blue, because he was trying to be like student body president. And we had thought, hey, maybe if he won, he'd come on the podcast.
Yeah, I didn't win, so that's why this is delayed a little bit.
I wasn't gonna just interview him not because he wasn't. It just didn't happen. I don't know why. It's all about the build up. See, It wasn't ready yet.
Yeah,
it wasn't built up yet. But
that's true.
As I started this is my first year of student leadership over at my school, and I'd love Christian will share in just a second, but I got in how they do stuff in student leadership. They have like projects, and then they have committees. And the project because Christian here is the VP of spiritual life, I was put in that project, and I'm starting to get to know Christian. And then Christian here, he's started up a Bible study, and I've been going to that. I've gone twice now, and it's really cool. So maybe you could tell us about your Bible study, what it is, how it got started, and anything that goes along with that to start us off.
Yeah, so also going back to what you said, I think one of the reasons that we're friends is because both of our favorite color is orange.
Oh,
I'll add that in. I always noticed him for it. Love his suits.
He has an orange shirt on right now.
That's so
I
true.
don't have one. Oops.
It's okay. We got the background. We're good.
Yeah.
But yeah, my Bible study. So over the summer, in preparation for a mission trip to Ecuador, I decided that I wanted to go to a Bible study, and I went to this one from an invite from a friend, kind of off a whim, called Koinonia. It was a college Bible study, and I didn't realize it, but I wasn't even supposed to be there because obviously I'm not in college. But I went to it, and just seeing peers and people a little bit older than me, just in there for worship at all points in their faith, really inspired me, especially in the small groups. I mean, I was talking to Air Force cadets who weren't really Christians, but they just heard of this Bible study and they were checking it out. And so I thought that was really cool. And so I started that day, I started planning my Bible study. I kept trying to name it different things and see a theme, but I ended up deciding on Pop because I met a man when I was little. His name was Richard Conklin, but I came to call him Poppy. And just the best man I ever knew. He loved fixing things around the house. He was 94, and he would fix our water tank heater for fun. But he was an engineer. He lived through bombing raids of World War II as a high school student and college and things. So he just lived a super interesting life. And with me here, I actually have a piece of paper that he wrote. It's his 6 pearls of wisdom and his 10 ways to simplify your life, and his Bible actually that he gifted to me about 2 years before he died. But those pearls of wisdom are all connected to Psalms, different Psalms. So I decided that to honor God, I wanted to make a Bible study and Honor Poppy, based off of those 6 pearls and 10 ways to simplify your life, but also make the Bible study open to people of all faith, no faith, or little faith, just so that they could have a community around them to talk about things that they might not feel comfortable talking about otherwise. And yeah, so it kind of took off. The first week was great. I thought all the conversations were wonderful, and the worship was very meaningful. And so was this second week that Matthew was there. And I'm just really hoping that we'll get people from more schools, from more places in their life, and that it'll be a safe space for a lot of people to come and worship God. So that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, POP stands for
People of Purpose. Yes. Yeah.
People of Purpose. For those who are listening in or watching in, maybe if you have nothing to do on a Monday night, come on down. They'll be going now in, or starting to be in Cherry Hills.
Cherry Hills. Not totally sure the place yet, but it'll probably be in the Nixon's Coffee area.
Yeah.
So
just look up POP or People of Purpose on Instagram, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you should be able to find that.
It'll be it'll be like an orange flower with purple in the background. So yeah.
Exactly. No, that's great, and I think that's really cool what you're doing. Obviously, that was one of the reasons why I wanted to have Christian on here, just to kind of like share what he's doing. I think that's quite cool. I think, especially for people who maybe don't go to church or just so busy or whatever. Like, I think it's cool to find a community. And I know Christian, we were talking about this on Monday, but like just maybe some even like fun or cool ways to maybe do certain fun things. Because I think sometimes you guys or people believe that like you can only experience God's what do you call it? Like presence in like a building, but I personally believe it like can be anywhere with anyone. You just have to like intentionally, or at least like you have to invite him in that space. I mean, he's there regardless, but you know, like if you show up with intentionality, he'll be there. So yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And that's awesome. Maybe so people can better understand like why you have a Bible study or like you are into the things that you are. Maybe continually talk about who you are. Maybe even share a little bit of your faith journey. What are some of the lessons maybe that you've gotten from other people, but are like maybe the biggest things that have shaped you? Do you kind of understand what I'm saying, or do you want me to?
Yeah, no, I got what you're saying. So my faith started out, I was lucky enough to have a Christian mom. I didn't grow up knowing my dad. He's somewhere. He's around like our neighborhood, but I just haven't met him since I was like 6. But my mom and I, man, we were so close. We still are. But grew up in church until baseball started kicking in every Sunday, every weekend. So then it started being like, oh, like we'll watch it online, and then it went from, oh, we'll watch it online to just kind of ignoring it until the winter break when we could go. And even then we would go to Ohio for family visits. So I would say I believed in God and like knew all of the stories that you're supposed to know, that you learn in Bible study and stuff, up until about my freshman year. Then on a whim, I decided on New Year's Eve to make my New Year's resolution that I would open my Bible and read a chapter every day. And I started doing that, and I found myself reading more than one chapter and like questioning my faith more and more. And I started to make my faith my own. I realized the things that I was doing or believing that weren't necessarily in line with what God has called his Christians to do. So I started pursuing those, trying to better myself. And through that process, I found that probably my biggest fault was that I grew up slightly Catholic. So I believed in the idea of like purgatory. And with that, like some good things you do and some bad things you do, like affect your salvation, instead of just the idea that Jesus wipes the slate clean. So I realized that I was judging a lot of people just based off of what they're doing and thinking of them as like less of Christians or less of people just because of, I don't know, maybe they drink or had sex before marriage or smoked weed one time. And so I started to realize that I was judging people unjustly. And so I pursued a bunch of different books, mentors, everything along those lines. And interestingly enough, the place I found it was somewhere I did not expect it. It was in a C.S. Lewis book, which you could probably expect to find something good in there. But it was actually in the introduction to the book. He specifically says that in his book, what he's going to cover, Mere Christianity, that he's going to cover all the different sins like temptation, lust, all of these different things, but he's not going to cover gambling. And he goes on to explain for maybe a page and a half that the reason he's not going to cover gambling is because he himself does not struggle with the temptation. So he doesn't understand and he can't give good counsel on it. And reading that kind of opened my eyes a little bit to realize like the thing that I was judging people for were the things that I didn't struggle with.
Mm.
And I think after that realization and like taking those words really to heart, my faith like completely changed. And I think that's part of the reason I really love the idea of having a Bible study that's not affiliated with a school or church or a denomination specifically of Christianity, but rather it's open to people of like all aspects of their life because, well, as the name says, everyone as a person, as a people, everyone are people of purpose. So
Yeah, I like that. I like
yeah.
that. Maybe you guys were hearing this or seeing it when you were watching, but I'm flipping through my Bible here. I can't find a specific verse, but I know, 1 Corinthians 13 specifically talks about love. You might have heard love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy. But like, verses beforehand and after, um, I don't really want to take you guys down a whole verse hunt, but um, it kind of overall says something about how like you can have all these other things. You can have um, you can be you can do things for the poor. You can um, like basically be what a perfect Christian is, but it amounts to nothing unless you love and like you do with an intention of love. And I think that's like something that I've even like realized like it's hard to not judge other people. But I heard this maybe on Instagram, I heard it somewhere, but don't judge someone based off of their sin or just because their sin looks different than yours. Which is like something that I think that I'm realizing is like just because maybe I'm not struggling with the same thing that someone else is or they're not struggling with it. Like we all have something that we're struggling with. We're all probably doing something that we know that we shouldn't be doing. What I think what that First Corinthians 13, you should just look at the chapter. I think you guys could maybe do a better job of looking at that and taking the contents than me explaining it. But I think it calls like Jesus. If anyone were to look at his character, people would say that he was a guy who loved people who maybe shouldn't have deserved the love, or he loved people that everyone even around him was like, Jesus, why would you love so and so? So that's yeah, that's one thing I just wanted to bring up. Love, things like that.
Yeah, and I think in relationships like with peers and family and friends and then people that you don't know, I think love manifests itself in a lot of different ways. I think like with family, it's more of like in a way like a guaranteed love. Like you always know that family has your back, that you can confide in them. And I think oftentimes when you make like the friends in your life and those people that you don't know feel like family, it allows them to open up a lot more and get a lot closer to you. And I think that's like whenever I hear someone say like God is my best friend or like they refer to God as like their father, like that's why it says it. I think that you can just really tell that they have that like deep and like close relationship with that person if they're family.
Yeah,
It's that different kind of love.
yeah. It's there's different types of love. I think like if you I heard something from some pastor from, but I guess there's like different like types of love. Like if you were to break down love, I think there's like different ways of love. Like yeah, like you said, like love for from family, love for a friend, love for a brother, things like that. I know that they're like at least in other languages, like there were different words for different types of love. But yeah. I'd love for you to share, um, Christian. You'll be the Discovery Chaplain for Kenya, but maybe beforehand you talk before that. Tell us about maybe You said you went to
Ecuador.
Ecuador.
Yeah.
Maybe share your experiences from that because, like, man, like, I'm sure it was pretty awesome.
Yeah. That trip was definitely, we prepared for it for months, many times after school with like devotionals, meetings, culture sensitivity projects to like prepare ourselves. But man, when you were down there, it was just completely different. We went to two different villages in Tena, which is outside of Quito, like more like into the rainforest. And both villages that we visited hadn't seen like outside human contact, like from non-Ecuadorian people in like over 25 years. So when we like came into the village and went into their church, I just remember all the little kids and like even the parents like being in awe like by us, not necessarily because we were there, but like for little things like the fact that we were white, the fact that I had like curly hair, and the fact that I was tall. I was talking to some of the people there, and they'd never seen, like even some of the adults, if they were under 25, they'd never seen a white person before, or someone with curly hair, or someone tall, because
Yeah,
Ecuadorians
crazy.
Ecuadorians are not tall, let me tell you. I hit my head on quite a few door frames down there, even like in the shops. But all those little kids, I just remember we filled in their chapel, and this is before I'd had any conversation with anyone. And I'm sitting in the pew alone because the numbers just added up weird, and I was like in this pew at the very back of the church, like by myself. None of my teammates, none of the leaders, like no one's with me. And about 5 minutes into the service, I see this little boy wearing like a Transformers T-shirt. He like walks over and sits at like the very other end of the pew, and he just kind of looks at me like he wants to talk, but like he's shy. And so I just scoot all the way down, and we introduce each other. And I don't really speak very good Spanish, so all I could gather was that his name was Roy. And we end up sitting together for church, and I end up sliding back down the pew, and he follows. And by the end of the service, I'm sitting, he's sitting like kind of like on my leg, holding my hand, and the entire rest of my pew is just filled with the kids. And there's about 10 of them all stacked in this one pew with just me. And it comes time for offering, and so I take out like my wallet and give them each like $1 to go put in the offering box. And all of their eyes just like lit up, like they'd never held like money before, I guess. And so they all like took the money, were like singing and dancing all the way down to the thing, and they all come back, and just the rest of the trip was just so filled with joy. Another thing that stuck out to me was we brought Polaroid cameras to take pictures of them, and then on the back right, like Jesus loves you, or like you're made in the image of God. And this was the first time like any of the kids had seen their reflection. Like they didn't have mirrors, they didn't have phones, nothing. So it was the first time they'd seen the reflection, like outside of like looking into their community watering hole. So just seeing like their eyes light up and things like that, but still like the idea that they had such like intense faith in God that they were going to church when they had nothing. Um Man, it was just really special to see those kids, and even the parents. I mean, like they were in the same boat as the kids, were they were just like curious. Like they were just like experiencing something just as new as we were. So
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. Yeah, that's actually so cool. I can't imagine that. Yeah, that brings a smile on my face because I just can't imagine. Yeah, it just sounds awesome, and that's something that I am hoping to do something like that. I did go on a skirt trip, but it wasn't anything like that. So yeah, now maybe tell us about Kenya. Like now you're going. So Christian now has the opportunity to now go and like basically like chat or basically like
yeah, chaplain.
chaplain the group,
Mhm.
which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, so one of the nights down in Ecuador, we had like a worship night around the fire, and I kind of like pulled myself aside like by the hammock area on our campground, and I just whoever wanted to come over from our team, I just like kind of told my testimony. And by the end of my testimony, the whole team was over there, and we were all worshiping and singing. And one of the team leaders, like I guess, reported that back, and I was chosen to be a discovery chaplain. And the trip that spoke to me was Kenya. So went through the application process. I was chosen for the trip, and After hearing like what we're doing, I'm very excited. I feel very called to it. We go down. It's 29-hour flight, so not exactly sure how my back is going to be after that. I might be a little sore, but so we're going to serve what they call weep women, and it's basically women who have AIDS and were like either divorced or like kicked out of the tribe by the men because they're like useless now to the people there. And so we're gonna take the kids from the women and like run a VBS for all their kids, and then teach the women certain trades like how to knit or sew or like plant crops so that they can be functional in their societies. So we're gonna work with that for a couple days, and then we go into two different villages to build homes for them out of mud, like mud huts, which will be very like labor intensive, but I'm actually really excited for that. My freshman year, I actually went to Mexico to build a house for a homeless family. So I'm definitely excited to kind of like get back into the physical service aspect of it as well. And it just sounds like we really just like round out the trip that way, just like serving the kids with VBS and the women there that are just unfortunately treated differently because of circumstances pretty much out of their control. So.
Yeah, I think that's going to be absolutely amazing. That's going to be awesome. Maybe now segue into another part, but what are some of like the biggest things that like you've maybe learned from your walk in faith or anything one of those, but like what are some encouragements that you would have for people who are listening? You can say it however you want and talk about whatever you want, but I do think like okay. What you've been talking about, I forget the word, but I'd love for you to talk about it's that feeling of like everything's going on good around you,
Yes.
but
Yes, I got
you
you.
got it? Okay.
So my first sermon that I gave at my Bible study is based off of Poppy's first pearl. It's enjoy each day. It's a gift from God. Recently there was a study done by Dr. Ritz Larry or something. It's something along those lines. But he was researching this new type of depression that is being seen in brain scans of people across the U.S. And there's a specific name for it. It's called anhedonia, and it's the idea that we make checklists in our life, and once we checklist the things off of our day, we like have our time to rest at the end of our day, and that ends up usually being like scrolling on TikTok or Instagram or playing video games or something. But what actually happens is we're like subconsciously tricking ourselves throughout our day by just checklisting off the things like, oh, I need this much homework done, and then I have this much time at sports practice, and then I have to spend this much time with my family. And once I'm done with all of that, I can finally rest and scroll on TikTok or something. But it leaves us feeling like achievements don't matter anymore. Anhedonia is the idea that it's a type of depression that stems from people who say things like, I live a great life, I have a lot of friends, I don't struggle for anything, like I always have a full meal, I go to a great school, I'm doing well in sports, but why do I feel this way? Why do I feel depressed? And that idea just really comes from the studies showing it's just coming from that achievement. We're not rewarding ourselves for the achievements we get throughout our day. We're planning everything out, going through the motions, resting, and then just repeating the same thing. And we're leaving that sense of achievement, sense of like purpose out of our lives. We're not enjoying our day, as Poppy would say. We're not recognizing that each day is a gift from God. And that's why we're seeing such a big influx in that specific depression. So.
Yeah, why I wanted you to share that is because honestly, if I'm gonna be honest, that has really like ever since you shared that has really been getting me thinking. I was even thinking about this last night, but honestly, if I'm gonna be honest, I feel like a lot of times that's where I'm at. I don't know, like I just feel down on myself. I feel like if I'm gonna be honest, like a lot like I have a lack of purpose, even though I know like what my purpose is. If it is simply to like I think we all have like a purpose from God. Like I believe that we have like, we're given this purpose, go out and talk about God, go be in fellowship with others, like go be that good neighbor to other people. Which I believe, and then I also believe like God gives us all spiritual gifts and things like that. But yeah, no, with what you have shared, it's definitely made me think about like what is my purpose, and it's got me to think a lot. But yeah, no, and I guess the one thing that I want to still share, because I don't know where I'm going with this particularly, and it's hard to kind of sometimes share what you're like processing, and because I would say I'm probably still processing it, because like I think anyone who like has gotten to know me is like, Matthew, you're pretty outgoing, you're pretty this or that, but I'm definitely a person like really trying to right now currently, and I know I'm only 16, and I know people are like, Matthew, you shouldn't be worrying about this. You have plenty of time, but I do wonder like what is my purpose in life? What has God made me to do? And um but yeah, I think I need to find some rest. I think I need to find rest. I think um and also just like be grateful like you had said. And so that's something I was thinking about last night, just like every day let me just find something to be grateful for. And so that's kind of where I'm at. But thank you for sharing that. Like that's something that I felt compelled for you to share, because that's somewhere I would say I'm probably at right now.
Yeah, and like with what you're saying, the idea that like you're 16, you don't necessarily have to have it all figured out. I felt the same way, but I never like pursued it like you did. I can't my purpose came like out of the blue,
Mm.
or what I at least believe my purpose to be. Like I said kind of at the beginning, I thought I wanted to be a doctor and a lawyer. And I pursued that for a long time. And that was while I was pursuing that was when I was probably at like the lowest level of my faith, like the lukewarm Christian that they mentioned in Matthew.
Yeah.
Um, and I found that once I found God, like I had never even considered the idea of business finance or like pastoring, like ever.
Okay.
It was just always like lawyer, neurosurgeon. That's
Mm.
interesting to me. That's what I'm gonna do. My mom was doctor. I'm good at arguing. I could be a lawyer.
Oh yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'd say but most of all like be patient
Yeah.
in that endeavor. Definitely seek it out, but just like be aware that like it'll come. It's just it might not come when you expect it or where you expect it.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. And I now push it on to you guys. What he's given me encouragement in, I pray that you guys can also just feel encouraged by that. It doesn't necessarily have to be purpose, but I can say, okay, this goes out to the guys or the girls out there, but relationships. I know some of you guys, I know I do, but I hope for a relationship of some sort someday. But I think we look at other people around us, we might be like, oh, why doesn't so and so, or like they have a girlfriend, they have a boyfriend, but I don't. I share this, and maybe you're not in that boat, but I know I am. I say this because I don't have a girlfriend. But it's something that I've been thinking about. Like, is it because I'm not good enough, or? And I know that's not true, but these are thoughts that are in my head. And but yeah, I think that is a really good encouragement, and that's something that I need to continually sit in. Like just being patient and waiting on God's time, because God's time is good. His time is perfect. Like I think I had shared this in a previous episode, but it's just there's a reason for the season. There's like your process comes out of purpose. Um, and a lot of times, and someone shared this already, and so I don't want to rehash it, but I really like something that's really been on my heart lately is a lot of times where you're at right now might be God saying to you, I'm going to have you be right here, right now, so that like you don't get in, like it might be a protection thing, or it might be like a you're not ready thing. It's like God looking out for you, and He's like, I want everything that you're wanting too, Matthew, or so and so. But just, you got to be a little, you have to wait on me. You have to be patient. Like you said, patience. And like that's persevering too. I think like people don't see it that way, but I think patience is a form of perseverance, because I think it's easy to grit through things, but it's hard to be patient. So,
Yeah, I totally agree. Patience is something I always struggled with. I'm a very like my brain fires really fast, so I get answers really quick. So I'm somewhat impatient. I did find that my patience has been best like when I'm just kind of like going with the flow, but like trusting in God's plan, reminding myself that I am a part of God's plan. Um Also like with what you said, like with the pressure to find like that, I see a lot
Yeah.
with like boyfriend, girlfriend, but also just like a best friend, like
Okay.
close friend. Um I've been blessed enough to have found a really great person in my life. And Matthew was actually asking me about her the other week, but what I said like I admired so much was the idea that she's the opposite of me. Um like kind of picks up my slack. I'm somewhat impatient. I've been working on it, but I'm impatient. Um and I struggle with like sometimes like I'm too extroverted or sometimes I'm like too like self-focused or prideful. And like the way that I'm benefited by her is the idea that like she's the most patient person I've met, and very kind to everyone regardless of circumstances, and very not judgmental, which is something that I've been working on. And I just think like finding someone, even if it's just a friend, or like a family member, honestly, to just like kind of like be that opposite of you, to pick you up and hold you accountable, is something very important. And there's something to be said for finding a person like that. So
Yeah. And no, yeah, and I can say like in confidence, like I've found a few guys, like my youth group specifically. Um, if you need a group, bro, come reach out, promise. I'm not trying to plug a group because that's not what it's about. I think you can find Christ anywhere, um, but yeah, no, I like that. Community and finding someone that opposes you and maybe in a way, or not opposes you, but is opposite of you. Um, and if that's good that not everyone's just like you, because then it'd be kind of one boring, and then
yeah,
I don't know, it wouldn't be very. I like what you, and I think there's a theme that you've been going about, but there's something about people like who hold you accountable, something about like someone who will look out for you, someone who's different than you, and it kind of goes with like you've brought up judgment, this or that, but I think I know today I feel like my how I'm speaking is not quite how I'm thinking. I think I'm thinking too fast, but um I think it's like good to have different insights and like being able to see other people's perspectives and point of view. And I think that's a lot of times what kind of like prohibits or maybe is a hurdle that some people won't like look at, like seeing other people's sides. And I think that's kind of why some people are hesitant to be about this Jesus thing, or well, why like so and so's they call themselves a Christian, but they're not living the Christian life, and then so and so is living the Christian life, but they are seeming to be a little more Christian like. So, um, yeah, I don't know.
yeah, and that it's interesting you bring up that point at the very end, because I think I mentioned this in my Bible study, but I think one of the big issues for why Christianity is like somewhat declining in America and like also just like among kids our age is that the people that do call themselves Christians don't necessarily live like the perfect Christian life that everyone like holds them to
Probably,
that
yeah.
standard. Because when you say you're a Christian and like you take on the cross, um, like there's an expectation that people hold for you. Like you're meant to not curse as much, or like you're not meant to go to parties and drink. And granted, that is what the Bible calls us to do, but I think oftentimes like as Christians we forget that like people are also looking at how we act, not just like what we say and how we help them. Um yeah, and like with that community thing, like I won't say any names or anything, but I have a couple people that just like ask me like I'm going to text you some nights if I'm struggling with sin, or like I
Mm-hmm.
want you to hold me accountable. And I won't talk to this person for maybe months, hopefully months, because that means that they're doing well. But if when I see that text come in, like it's there, and it's something that I think we should normalize a lot more.
Yeah, I like that. Whole and I don't quite have an answer to this, but this is something that I want to throw out there. And I think as people have started to hear how I speak sometimes and I accumulate things and I kind of go back in circles and I pull things from previous episodes or whatever. But So you might have heard me say this before, but that's okay. Never too much of Matthew Brick speaking, I guess, right? You would have been turned off 51 episodes ago if that was the case. I don't know. Just kidding here. But a difference of accountability versus judgment. And I think to be holding someone accountable in the good way is to accumulate or to have grace. I think like Jesus would hold people accountable, but never once did he cross the line of like judgment or like, like judging. Like he always had grace. He always came to the people who, I think when he talked to the religious leaders of the time, he did come with an authority and like a fierceness, but I don't think he didn't do it out of the like if any one of them were to have come to Jesus later on and said like actually shown interest or anything. But there are a lot more other examples. There is an example maybe specific. I think with Nicodemus maybe, but he always came to people with grace, and I think that's something that we need to think about, and like that's something that I know that I need to uphold. Like an hour ago I was arguing with my parents or my brother, so like I don't do the best job of it, but it's something to think about. Just coming into anything, especially if you're just trying to like live for Christ and like show that to others, just to remember how like God gives you grace every day, and like that's something that we have to work towards.
Yeah, I think alongside that, there's also like a difference in judgment and like helping that person, like giving them advice and holding them accountable in the way that we pour into them. Judgment, oftentimes when I think of judgment, I think of it as like you just tell them like, well, fix yourself then, like,
Okay.
or you give them more like blunt responses. Well, I feel like when you're holding someone accountable, you from a Christian perspective at least, you use scripture and like godly wisdom to pour into them.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, this is something I had to learn really hard, especially with some people in my life that I'd known for a long time, just like going down the wrong road, and I could see it. And I wasn't necessarily judging them, but I couldn't help them. Like I began to realize that I can pour into them as much as I want, but at the end of the day, it's still their decision for how they want to live. And I think that holding someone accountable is allowing them the freedom and like not being overbearing in the sense that they are still making their own decisions and going down their path in life, but it's also like pouring into them with the wisdom that can help them break the cycle or like better their lives. Because at the end of the day, we can forgive someone, but we can't do like the platonic like capital F forgive that like God can do. Like
That's
we
true.
can forgive someone in our hearts, but we can't show them godly mercy or anything like that. So just like pouring into them so that they can seek God and get that renewal of mind and spirit. So
Yeah, I like that. And to all those people who are listening, and I haven't done a good job of, being a good, I maybe haven't come into a relationship or been the most graceful. I apologize, but like I like that though. I really do think, and what's nice is I think God says, but He'll wipe it or He'll like count every tear or something like that. Like He's a redeemer. Like that's something that I believe, and I think like our relationships now, how we are now, like it's all gonna be redeemed, and even the people that like I know it's that prayer. It's like forgive those who trespass against us, and like who I've trespassed against myself. I didn't say it at all right, but I yeah, but it's like yeah, my trespasses like I trespass other people, but I ask for forgiveness, and I think that's something that like maybe I won't always be able to like truly forgive, but like God does, and that's what's good. That's good. I want to open up this space to if there's anything more that you want to talk on specifically, if there was something that coming into this episode that you might have thought like, oh, I think this would have been really cool to have shared. If there is anything, I'd love for you to share that.
yeah, there wasn't anything specific, but just kind of as we talked, I just think it's an important reminder for everyone to know that like everyone's faith looks very different. Like for me, I'm much less in prayer, but I spend a lot of my time like listening to podcasts or like reading books or just reading like the Bible. But I know people that just doesn't really apply to. They are more worship music or prayer. And I think that however your relationship with God looks is
Yeah.
just like I think it's really important to just like hold strong to that.
Okay.
To realize that like there's no perfect relationship with God. There's personal relationships with God, and if you have one, like then it's perfect.
I like that. And sorry if I got a little excited. I'm not gonna lie. I find myself being a little bit more praise Jesus, get excited.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's kind of my type.
Mhm.
But I like that. And yeah, you guys, this is what I would say. Read First Corinthians 12. Why I've referenced so much from Corinthians is because that's what I'm reading right now. But Corinthians 12 talks about spiritual gifts, and I think there's probably a lot more about comparison. But like specifically, if you're already a believer, I think we can find, oh well, I'm not being such a as good of a Christian as so and so, or so and so is praying like crazy and I can't do that, or so and so is speaking in front of so and so and I can't. I would first off just say, like, God has given you certain gifts, and like you yourself can reach people that I can't reach, what other people can't reach. So I would say, like, um think about that. And I would, yeah, read Corinthians 12 maybe, because then you like, it talks about how no gift is greater than the other because they all come from God. They all come from the Holy Spirit. And um yeah, I would just say lean into like the gift. If you, and then also the way that like Christian was saying, if you're more into receiving the gospel or God this one way, then be in that. But also it's good to always try other things. But you know what's, yeah, I'll end it on this. The best way I think can say it is it all comes from God. And that's cool. It's cool that God gives us all these different ways to preach and show himself and reveal himself to us. Because if it was only one way, let's say God showed himself to everyone the same way, it wouldn't maybe have the same impact or like magnitude. Like God has such a magnitude and greatness to him that like even the way that he shows us now is like a mere, it's not even at like the full capacity. Like it talks about in the Bible how Moses saw the backside of God, or like, you know, and like he was blinded, like, so, you know, like the just severity of God's presence. But invite it into, like, how cool is it, like there's this a mass amount of power that we can't even fathom, but he's on our side, he got our back. So that's something to think about too. I've been yapping.
We
But
like
yeah,
the yap. Don't worry, we like it.
we do like, I like yapping. I could yap. I guess if there's any other questions that you have for me, anything you more want to talk about, if not, we can kind of start closing this up. Um,
Yeah.
okay.
Really quickly, I'll ask you. What are your opinion? Because you kind of mentioned it a little bit.
Yeah.
What is your brief opinion on like spiritual gifts?
So maybe I have to open this up. Like, what do you mean? Like, what's my opinion on it? Like, do I believe that they're real? Like, or like, do
Well, I
I?
mean, in the Bible it says that spiritual gifts exist, and it lists the different spiritual gifts.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think that there's something that we should be pursuing like actively to recognize what they are, and like if so, do you think that's kind of where we get our purpose from?
Oh, so okay, that is a like an amazing question. Like how you, I don't even know. So I might not even be able to answer it that well. And so that's why I say, like, literally Corinthians 12 says concerning spiritual gifts. So I think that's something you guys should definitely look into. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna probably read it all right now, but I can tell you this. I would pray, like, okay, I don't know exactly. I'll answer this part of the question that you gave me, like by understanding the gift that you've given, can that kind of lead to understanding your purpose? um And so what I would say, and I might not even be able to answer it that well, but what comes to my mind immediately is that, like, I was wondering, I was talking with like one of the mentors of mine, and he's like, how do you hear God's voice? How do you hear that? And when I mean hear God's voice, I don't hear a voice, but honestly, how I feel like I would hear God's voice, and like something that I really thought about it is probably through my conversations that I have. That's a big reason why I do the podcast. I just kind of know that like that's something that God, I've always found meaning in conversation, and there's a reason why that I like to talk then. So that's like for something for me, like that gift now kind of translates to no matter what I'll be doing in life. I know that's like something in my life that I will go to because that's something I genuinely like, but I also think that's like maybe a gift. Yeah, God, me, and it doesn't have to be in front of so many people, but I think that's something that I'm trying to reorganize all my speech. But me understanding now, okay, maybe a spiritual gift or just even something that I know about myself is I hear that God's voice through other people, through connection and community and speaking specifically. Now, what can I do with this? I can go and say, okay, I don't maybe know what my purpose is, but I know it entails this. And I would say that my biggest, like, I would say, if you don't know what your gifts are, like, I think it's honestly the stuff that, like, honestly, like, it might go along with your dreams. It might go along with what you really like to do. But like you said, Christian, you might have a certain plan in your mind, and then God's like, heck no, you're not doing that. I love you more, and you're going to do something so much better and so much cooler than what you think you're going to do. And I believe that's true, and even for me. Um, but honestly, it's like the stuff that like is really on your heart, I think. And also maybe a spiritual gift might not be easy to you. Like you might think, oh, well, it's actually whatever I'm like good at. Maybe it's something that you'll have to grow into. I don't know. But I think like it'll be on your heart. I think like once it's like in your heart, like you'll definitely be able to discern it better. Cause then your heart, like I think your heart is like the decider a lot of times of like who you are and what's right or wrong. And honestly, I think like the language of God a lot of times goes to your heart. So I think that's how you'll be able to like see if it's coming from God or if it's just like even something from yourself. So that was a long answer, but also if you wanted to add anything.
Yeah, I mean, I know I kind of put you on the spot with
I
like
know
a
that was
really hard question. It was just something I've been thinking about a lot because as I've been writing like my personal essay and all the stuff for college, I realized when I was talking about like I used to really want to be a lawyer and a doctor, I realized that like throughout that entire part of my life, like my strongest attribute was like caring for others.
hmm
I volunteered at a nursing home with my mom when I was like 7 until 14. And it was one of those things that like brought me a lot of joy. And that like serving others, lawyers, they serve their defendants, whether they're guilty or not. But they serve their defendants, and then like the neurosurgeon, you're serving them like in their health. Um, and then I saw my life, like my purpose change when I noticed that I started really pursuing and like the idea of like teaching and
hmm
evangelism. So I also think that we can have a lot of different spiritual gifts, and they will manifest at different times in our lives. So that also like along the same lines as our conversation earlier is like you don't have to have everything figured out now because your purpose might change. You might have a purpose for right now. Like for you, your purpose right now might be to have this podcast to be questioning things like this so that you can help someone else. And then outside of high school and wherever you go after that, your purpose might change. God might call you somewhere else with a different spiritual gift. So
oh, dude, that's good. Yeah, that's good. See how we built off each other
it was
right
kind of full circle a little bit too, like
there.
after
Yeah,
background, yeah.
it was good. It was good. Well, Christian, I know I've said this, um, so I'll just say it again, but we're kind of like, what is your biggest encouragement? And like, however you want to close, because I feel like you should be the one closing us off. But yeah, maybe like a deep, whatever your last message is to the people listening or watching, and then we'll say our goodbyes, and then yeah.
All right. I guess the main things are just find a community, even if it's very small, like one person, and just make that person or that community something that you're vulnerable with. Be comfortable talking to them, recognizing what you're good at, what you might not be good at, and working on those. Also, realize that your purpose, whatever it is, you have a purpose right now. But if your purpose is to not know your purpose and to like search for it through different means, then take like comfort and take comfort in that. And finally, just going back to that anhedonia point from earlier, is just like the idea that if you're living a great life, if you have all the friends, all the food you can all the food you can ask for, all the clothes you want, if you're living that good life, then just like recognize it and be grateful for it, and thank the people that contribute to it, and it'll help you out a lot with your mental health and with your spiritual formation.
I really like that. I really like that. Thank you, Christian.
Of course. Thank
You're
you for
awesome.
having me.
Oh yeah, boom. Boom, another episode is done. Thank you guys for listening and watching. We'll see you guys next week. Love you. Bye.